Hi, and welcome to another episode of the ARC podcast with Jen and Lindsay. Jen, how are you today?
I'm great, Lindsay. How are you?
Oh, hanging in there. It's a great day.
I know, right? So, we just had our big national conference, so Lindsay didn't get to come with, so I was kind of giving her some of the cool things we got to do, but also like I didn't get to go to the second day either because of family stuff too. So we're always just like we're either killing it with the mom stuff or killing it with the work stuff. Sometimes it's the balance of both, but I know our audience feels us there if you're a mom and trying to raise little kids.
Yes, definitely.
It's a balance, but we're here today. So excited for our guest. This is someone who I met really early on in my work at the ARC. Actually, I think she was the first person I called who was like my first phone call that my boss had said, "Hey, I really want you to meet someone." And she had called asking a question or something. And he's like, I think you're ready to take on your first advocate who might have some resource needs. But I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go help her. It's gonna be great. And then I call her and I start talking to her and I'm like, over the past 2 years, she has taught me so much more than I can even do to help her. And I'm just thrilled she's here. This is actually her second podcast appearance with us, guys. So
You're our first comeback around, so I'm really excited.
today we have Alicia Hopkins. Hi, Alicia.
Hi, I'm grateful to be.
All right, Alicia, we're going to need you to speak up because I need to hear your voice.
Hi, I'm grateful to be here today to talk about my book, Audacity to Speak.
Thank you. I know. Well, I mean, your book is called Audacity to Speak, and I want you to have this audacity to speak today. I want to hear you. I want you to talk about your new book. I had the chance to read it. I was so excited when you first put it out to the community. I ordered it right away, and I just couldn't put it down as soon as I started reading it. You have so many good stories in here. You are an amazing advocate. Like, I think a lot of people in Ohio know your name already. But tell us why you chose to write this book now.
Well, I got the idea for the book in 2018, and I was really involved with advocacy for arts accessibility and advocating about the My Care Ohio program and everything. And so this book took me many years to write. I'm really excited about it. I want to kind of give a shout out to anybody who is trying to publish a book that has a disability that, just, hey, keep going, keep doing it, keep working on it. You're going to get there. It does take time, but it's really good when you can publish and everything. So, but I wrote this book mainly to publish it now because I wanted people to understand, some of like my disability, my story growing up as a person with a disability, but also what it was like then having a disability and now, and how there's a lot of red tape to access the healthcare in Ohio, and that we have a lot of continued advocacy that needs to happen. But also today we're seeing more people at the table, more families at the table, and more family caregivers, more families in general. We're seeing diversity in who's at the table, and I really think it's important to help people understand that advocacy is inviting people from various backgrounds to the table, and just to have a collective of voices at the table, and you can agree to disagree, but like making room so more people can speak up and be heard, because it's like that idea of nothing about us without us. Well, parents and family caregivers and everything and providers, they have a seat at the table like everyone else, and and people with disabilities, of course, being at the table. But I want people to know that hey, your voice is valid at the table just as much as anyone else's. And we have to unite really in the disability rights movement right now, especially because there's lots of services at threat. It's always been that way, but more so, there's just been, a need to like really connect people, and it can't be like this us against them. It really needs to be, a collective of voices at the table, and to advocate, and to make change and to add that diversity, because people with disabilities think one way, providers may think another, caregivers may think another, but we need a collective of voices to really be united for disability rights in these times. And in Ohio, it's been for so long, it's just been like one system against another. And we can't have that. We have to really connect and unite, because there's people like on the Medicaid side and the aging side, and the DD side that, have, different varying disabilities. But, there's people with developmental disabilities on the Medicare Ohio side, the aging side, that also need, supports and everything. And so, there's people with physical disabilities, but regardless, what your disability is, we have to advocate that there's access to these services. And for years I experienced so much red tape. Like I've had, I'm kind of what they call as a rare find. I'm a person that had services on a Medicaid waiver, and now I have services on a DD waiver. And so, it's like basically I've experienced both sides of it. And it used to be about 2 years ago, people were like, oh, well, DD gets paid more, so we're not going to advocate for their wages. But that's not exactly true. And then there was just a lot of like, it's just like we can't be like this system against that system. We have to be advocating for all disability services. And so I published this book to kind of talk about like, that unity and advocacy, and advocating, unified and unified voice for disability rights. And just talking, like the pandemic like shut down a lot of the community stuff, but as advocates, we found these ways to still connect, and actually we became like this powerhouse for advocacy. And it's
I
so
found like
rich.
parts of your book, like this is exactly how her book is. She gives you so much information intertwined with her life story, but also with the actual politics of the day that she was dealing with. So I love how you basically you set up a chapter with like, this was 2018, these are the things that were going on then, and then this is where my personal story was at the time, and this is how I advocated through it. And I think it really, it's so smart the way you did it, because I think even though your case is a rare find and a complex case and something that might shake up a lot of systems because people don't know where to place you, you're not alone. There are other people, a lot of other people that, of course, Lindsay and I are always talking to, who do have more complex needs, medical, along with the DD, along with the mental health. Like, and I think we just get stuck in like trying to figure out, where does this person live, and like, how do I, like, mostly it's like a lot of systems trying to be like, not mine, like should be someone else's problem kind of thing. And you do a good job of saying exactly like how your advocacy worked in the midst of like such complexity, and in the midst of like a lot of incompetence and a lot of tragic things that happened to you. And so can you talk a little bit about like your My Care Ohio piece? Okay, when you talk about that in the book, what advice can you give people who are like, wow, this waiver or this system is not helping me, I think I should be over here? What should they do, and who do they talk to, and how do you get there? How do you get the help you need? And this is like a big question, but how can we fix that system? Because I do think that the differences between the waivers and the different systems that you're in, like, can't there just be a one-stop shop that kind of helps everybody? Like, what do you think?
Well, I really think that we need to do better assessments of people. A lot of the problem is like if you're not ever in a system, like you might get educational supports growing up, or you may not. You might not ever be in the system. That's like then as an adult you find yourself with a need, and then you're like they tell you you're too old, or whatever not. But I would say like keep your records, keep copies of them, ask for your school records, ask for like keep a binder of your medical records, because you never know when you're going to need them. In my case, like I had a really hard time proving my autism diagnosis before 22. I was diagnosed in 1989 with autism, and I had a really hard time proving my autism diagnosis. I had a hard time proving my developmental disabilities. And when I first was like looking at a waiver and stuff, I kept being told, oh, well, you're too old, you know, you don't have records, everything. And it was really frustrating for me. And they were like, oh, here's some mental health resources. But then I would get thrown to the mental health system and they would be like, no, you're autistic. We go to the DD board. It was this back and forth fight. So I think like looking back, if I could do it all over again, I would have like saved records. I also would have got people to write letters for me, like observational letters, everything. I would have like would have asked, like I would ask more help. But um the other thing is that when you go into a nursing home and if you're in your 20s, you go into a nursing home, like they're not assessing you for a DD waiver because they think you're too old. And so I think we got to do better at like better assessments, like for facilities, hospitals, to like check and see if somebody has a developmental disability. Then we also have to do better like an assessment for like there's a lot of, say someone with a disability goes through a domestic violence situation or like abuse situation with a parent. I think we need to do better at recognizing that, better training for law enforcement, better training for like the legal system. Sometimes too in legal situations, like people will try to hide that somebody has a developmental disability, and that was like part of my situation. And so like it didn't really do me any good. But all around, I think we could do better in the assessment process for like social work, hospitals, doctors' offices, and really just I think it's truly important to keep records. Also, keeping track of when your waiver doesn't meet your needs. Was something that was really critical for me. I had saved tons of emails. I feel like I might have more emails than anyone, but it's truly important to keep like a log of like when you make a request for your waiver and then it's denied, or when you make a request for an ADA accommodation that's denied. Like it's truly important. Like to this day, I've never been able to get plain language information about my waiver, even though I have a learning disability. So it's like, but it's important to keep track of this stuff. And, and also to, make sure you're filing grievances, filing ADA claims if you have to. I mean, it's truly important to do all that and really keep good track of it, because if one system doesn't meet your needs, you always can go to the other side, and if you can prove it, they'll let you. And that was what was happening to me, is that I was on MyCare Ohio for a long time, but there was just massive red tape. Like I wasn't even able, like I would find that my doctors weren't in network. So like the way MyCare Ohio works is that there are every county has two managed care plans that you're able to choose from. But say your doctors are in Southern Ohio and you live in Canton, you can't just like go out of network. You have to like go to the top of the ladder. Like for me, I have a rare disease, and at one point I had to get my primary care doctor that was in network to write a letter asking if a doctor out of network could be my primary care doctor in Cincinnati. And so it's that idea of, it's really like I would say, like if you're on MyCare Ohio, get involved with the advocacy groups. They have advisory councils. I would get involved with that so you can learn the ropes of your waiver. Also get involved in like Olmstead Task Force. Connect to the ARC, even though the ARC primarily helps like developmental disabilities waivers. They do help people on the other waivers as well. And there are lots of people with developmental disabilities served by MyCare. It's not really known well, but we need to make that known, because like a lot of people are still eligible for Medicare, Medicaid because their disability was before 22, so they're getting like parents' benefits. And so so there are a lot of people with developmental disabilities on the MyCare waiver, and there's zero supports for developmental disabilities on the MyCare side. So it's really rough. Like there's no behavioral support access. There's not really nutrition access. It's very, very different. There's not employment supports because it's more like a nursing level of care waiver and stuff. And my situation was a little bit more complex. I needed, support for nutrition and behavior because I'm autistic. So I wasn't really getting my needs met. And I was also on a backup plan. There are a lot of issues with my care. There's supposed to be this next generation, new and approved. I don't buy it. I think it's a PR scam. I'm gonna be honest. I really think that the only real way to fix the programs, to be honest, is to really you know do some person-centered care training, and adding to the programs, making sure there's actually these behavioral supports and other things. And the nursing waivers aren't really set up for that, so it's definitely a different ball game on Medicare Ohio. But if your waiver isn't meeting your needs, then and you think you qualify on like DD side, or everything, it's always worth a try to go through the assessment process. I would say take an advocate with you. That's what I did. Make sure you have some of your records. You can get letters from people as well, but I would make sure you have somebody with you on the assessment phase, so they don't go back 2 years later and try to say something different.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. I think a big piece of what this book taught me and what you teach me, like on a daily basis, basically, whenever I'm like thinking about you or watching you testify in front of our Ohio state house or the Senate or whatever you're doing, which is you're an unbelievable storyteller. I think it's just that you can actually break down, like where the problems are in the systems, and then like why it's important to have those kind of like trainings and things for like trauma informed care. Because like what I tell parents is before you even try to go get a waiver for your child, get yourself into therapy and take care of yourself. Because this system it's very hard to navigate. And that's not me just being like, oh, it's going to be hard, honey. Like, like this is it's set up in a way to make sure that most people don't get through to the end of the system and that most people don't get the help because they're, the way that you go through the assessments and the way that the assessments are then, the answers come back and the way the wording everything is when it comes back to you and, you're denied because of these reasons, it's a trauma in itself to do it. And so talk a little bit about how you think we can maybe do a better job. Even me at the ARC and other advocates that want to help people and families like you, like how can we do a better job in just helping people get through that system without like and as much trauma as it is to get through it? Or is it just this is what it is and we all just need to because I mean you're always doing this and my one concern for you is you're always fighting, Alicia, and you're on your own fighting a lot of times. Like you have friends and advocates with you like me who want to help, but like this is your fight that you're fighting. So like how do you stay, I don't know, how do you take care of yourself through this battle?
Well, I have a couple things I would suggest. Peer support is really important. There are lots of peer support groups for caregiving, for caregivers, for people with disabilities. That's been a life changer for me, knowing that I'm not alone going through this. Also, I have a support decision-making team. Support decision-making has been life-changing for me. It's really helped me to have someone to go to be able to talk about these hardcore obstacles and help me find solutions and everything. For anybody that doesn't know what support decision making is, it's like that idea, like if you guys kind of go, if you have a car, you go to someone for advice about fixing your car. So it's just but you ultimately decide. And so for me, support decision making is that same way as I go to people. I have a team of 5 women. They're amazing, and I go to them and I talk about challenges I'm facing with my waiver, or housing certification, or different or trying to do my Medicaid research. And I go to them and I talk it through, and they help me figure out what I need to do, all the steps and everything, and then I ultimately make a decision and do it. So I mean, it's really important, I think, to have support decision making in place if you're disabled. It's a really, really great thing. And, anybody can do it. You can have one person, or you can have 5 people like I do, but it's been good to have different people from different backgrounds to bounce stuff off of. And for me, another thing I was going to say is that, just trying to, I think that, the ARC and other places could really help break down some of the waiver rules a little better, making some plain language guides, one-page guides to, hey, here's what to do with, here's what to do in these scenarios. Like, it's getting harder for people right now with managed care plans. A lot of people on the DD waivers are getting kind of like swayed into getting onto managed care because it covers ABA therapy, for example, for people with autism. And then once they get on this managed care plan, they find out that there's all this hoops they have to jump through to get like their incontinence supplies, or to get ventilator tubing, or to get find a dentist or something. And so, or even just to like get something approved on the waiver. So it's really important like to learn about your Medicaid plan or managed care plan too. And I think, a lot of that's going to come in, is also people breaking down these accessibility policies. The more we push managed care, we need to find someone, this is really needed and it's not done anywhere. We need to get someone to break down what are the accessibility policies of these managed care plans. Like, is there TTY information? TTY is for people that are hearing impaired or deaf. Is there how do I get plain language? How do I request an accommodation? I mean, I feel like, ultimately we could create these documents and we can make a lot of people's lives easier. I mean, even it's needed really on all the waivers, but in general, I mean, a lot of people don't even know how to get an ADA accommodation on their managed care plan, or whether it's, if your regular MyCare, or if you're on a DD side and you're on a managed care plan, Medicaid. A lot of people don't know this stuff. And so I think it's really important. And a lot of people don't know how to ask for a state hearing or how to file an ADA claim. I really think that if we created some guides for families or people with disabilities, it would really help a lot. Because every day I get people messaging me how to do this or how to do that. And there's stuff I don't know, and then I'm asking someone else. So I think it's like, it's almost like, how they have these community resource cards for community services. You could create one of those for the waivers, like a map, a navigation map of resources. I don't know, just
One
thinking
thing
outside the box.
we found that as soon as we create something, and this is like straight from Gary Tonks, my boss, as soon as we try to create something, the rules change. And so we're like, and then you have this, and of course, then you just have to manage that, the web page and things like that. So I hear you on it. I think
we also need
that
you need a policy 101. How do you get involved in public comment? Like a FAQ page on how to get involved in public comment. Because I think too is that so many people, they get to the place of understanding it, but then these rules are changing and they're like, well, how do I speak up and have my voice heard on this? And how am I effectively doing it? Like, we need to like put out content that is about effectively using your voice. Like, not just because a lot of people want to tell their personal stories, but the thing is, that's what you actually got to stay away from, when you're doing public comment, because because it's public, and a lot of people don't realize that, whatever they're saying is public comment. So I think we need this guide about how to effectively, you can tell a little bit of your story, but how to effectively like say, this is why it needs to be changed. Like, this is what I've seen, everything.
Yeah.
So
talk about your art and how important that has been for your advocacy.
So I am well known around the state for using art to advocate for people with disabilities, the care crisis. During the last budget season, I painted 25 feet of art. I painted 25 feet of art about the care crisis, and I interviewed people from all over the state. I basically made it like comics almost, and told each person was somebody's story. And then I took that to the State House and I used it to talk about the care crisis and how it affected providers, how it affected people with disabilities, everything. And and I also talked about it from like the institution side, nursing side, because the care crisis is really rampant, whether you're in the community or at home, everything. And so I brought it from different angles, and then I turned the art into postcards. And I also led a workshop called Creative Change Makers, and we had people create art about what it was like with care and without care. And then we took their art and then turned that into postcards. But we also had a couple people write poetry. And then I traveled Ohio in 2023 and wrote postcards with different people. I wrote some people, met with a small group for the ARC, and went to the Ability Center, People First, went to Xenia. It was actually pretty amazing, and just really got out and did some from Cleveland and Columbus too, but just really got out and got people to have a voice at the table, like that might not always have a voice. And we scanned a lot of those postcards in as public testimony, so it gave a voice if you didn't really have opportunity to go to Columbus to testify. We also helped people write testimony and submit it. I really hope that the next budget to do something like that again, it would be amazing. But really just telling the stories of people with disabilities and really getting people to see, in a unified effort. I guess my most amazing advocacy effort, and I talk about it in my book, is where I held up a sign in front of the Ohio Senate that said home care access is, dear Ohio legislators, home care access is a human right. And I read the names of around 50 kids that needed like either nursing or home care. And I read their counties and where they were from, and basically the hours that they needed of care, because I had been making these lists for years trying to help people, and was seeing these lists grow and realizing that there's, a lot of need for care. But even though we got these wages and everything, we still need to do a lot more advocacy. Like, I really have a lot of ideas for recruiting plans, and one of my biggest ideas, and I want to share this because I think it's an amazing idea, and no one has ever really took me up on it. But job centers are meant to be one-stop shops for employment. Like, we get workforce investment funds every year that fund our job centers, and a lot of them go underutilized. And I really believe that we could use them as like training centers for direct support professionals. And like, what I mean is, like, by getting first aid, CPR, and background checks and all that done in a training all in one day, and like holding events around each county, with partnerships with Medicaid and DODD and aging, and just really hire, because there's, like, say you can come this day, you can come here and you can get, we would have to get partnership with the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, but really get some in the Red Cross and some other people, just to get over 1 or 2 days that in this time you can get a job, and you can get all the training and everything you need. And it would make it so that these job centers are utilized how they're supposed to be, one-stop shops for employment and training. And I had this idea, I proposed it to Disability Rights Ohio and some other groups that really take me up on it, but I really think that there's an effective approach for hiring direct support workers. And we really need to find a way, like even maybe get the ARC to partner or something, I don't know, but it's my big idea, because we get Workforce Investment Act funds every year and everything. I really believe that we could recruit a lot of people if we did that. And because
we want like the right people,
yeah,
good.
I know, but I'm just saying, but,
no, I'm with you. I think it's a great idea.
No, I think it's a perfect idea. I love it. So, because my mom is my son's respite worker through the ARC and the waiver, and she had to go to like 7 different locations to get everything done. And even she said, she's like, listen, I'm doing this because I love Whitman and I want to be there and I want to be his person. But I can see why it's so hard for other people to want to do it, because there are so many hoops. So one-stop shop, I think, could really, really help.
Yeah, job centers were meant to be one-stop shops for employment. and most of them have meeting rooms where you can hold trainings in and stuff. But if you think about it, like if we could over 2 days get some people, like or a week or something, I don't know, just like a small time period where they're and it's incentivized too. So like if you do this, like if you show up all the days, at the end you get a gas card or something. I don't know, you can incentivize it. I'm just saying, because like people in like rural communities, for example, like they want to do this work, but a lot of people don't drive in rural communities, but there's some amazing people. And having grown up in a rural community, I really think like, where there's a scarcity of home care providers, that, we could gain some people out there. But I think in every community, to be honest, I really think that this could work, or you can hold regional ones. I don't know. I have big ideas.
I want to hit two more things before
Okay.
you have to go, because you're such an expert at these things. I want your opinion. I'm working with a lot of kids right now with who need AAC devices. Whitman uses an AAC, right, Lindsay?
Yep, he does.
Communication is so important. I'm finding myself in some weird spots, either in meetings at schools or with the county boards or wherever I'm at, where no one wants to pay for the AAC device, no one wants to do the evaluation, and even the parents sometimes are like, I don't think that's gonna help. So like, can you just talk about why it's so important that every single person has a means to communicate?
So, all right, yeah, I love this topic. So, I really think that it's important to have access to assistive technology to communicate. Also, like PEC cards, PECs, and, picture exchange communication system, and everything. And so, it's really hard to get funding. I know that there's a lot of great resources through the Green Mountain Self Advocates. It's a really great national resource. I am on the Link Center National Steering Committee, and we're having a lot of conversations about this, about AAC technology. It's really hard to get funded. I will say that if you have a smartphone, you can get an app called Speech Assistant. On Android phones, it's free. On Apple, it's $11. But you can program a lot of, your basic sayings in it, customize it however you want. That's what I use. It's on all of my devices, everything. But I also think, I think that, we do need to raise more awareness, because eye gaze technology is covered by Medicare and Medicaid. And yes, there is like pushback from, speech therapists, because of course they want you to speak and everything. But I think, it's important to like involve occupational therapy too, and audiology, and as many people as you can. I think that,
and it's never too late, right?
Yeah, I think it's never too late. I think, it's important to raise awareness too about AAC. I just had experience in the emergency room where I advocated, I had a bad experience. Now I'm kind of asking them to train on AAC, hey, take my bad thing and make it better for other people. Because, we have to make sure, in emergency care, if someone's not able to speak, they might be able to use like a device to speak, or the PEC cards, picture exchange communication system. I have both in case my iPad dies, have a backup plan. But also just important to recognize that, someone that might speak great right now, like I am, I might not be like that all the time. I do have moments where I can't speak at all, or I sound really awful. I can't get words out. Also, too, like emergencies, are hard for me. So it's important to recognize that too. But it's also important to recognize too that even when someone doesn't speak, that there are other ways they can communicate. Like in my book, I talk about how all communication is valid. Like your behaviors, communication, how your body movements, it's all communication. And so I really think that, we have to work at trying to give people, like, be creative and give people ways to communicate.
Yeah.
And also really, I think we really have to promote the assistive technology thing with the AAC. I think it would be cool to create a guide of like what apps are like, what AAC apps are free or like low cost. Also, ideas on how to create PECs. I think it'd be fun to I have a lot that I use on a ring. I want to hold a workshop and teach people how to make the picture exchange communication cards and stuff.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I go to that.
I needed that when I was a younger
Mhm.
like mom, when the kids were little. Like I just had such a hard time like with the practical means of like I know I need this stuff and I need to put it together, but I'm like, you're in it, like you're in it so deep you can't make the stuff or put it,
Mhm.
you know, like, and
Yeah.
everything's so expensive. They try to like, autism is like this big industry of trying to sell
Mhm.
like a
So
lot.
things are really expensive, but what I've learned is like Pinterest. There's a lot
Mhm.
of free ones, free like PCs on Pinterest.
Yeah.
And also too,
Teacher
like,
Pay Teacher has some really good ones that are cheap. I've gotten for certain like situations and different things for like $2. I've gotten like the topic that we need in PEC's form.
yeah, I think it's really important. Also, those communication. I saw that the DD board was the DODD, Department of Developmental Disabilities, is putting out like Halloween holiday ones.
Mhm.
I would love to see them create some for like health care too,
Mhm.
to really help people with developmental disabilities communicate when they're having medical emergencies. I love to see them in every emergency room.
Yeah.
Because I think that, I think more training is required too. The more we use this stuff, having more training. One of the common themes of like, when it's somebody with a developmental disability is trying to get mental health help, the first thing they do is take away your devices. We gotta stop that from happening, because that's our voice or a way to communicate.
Right.
Mhm.
I know if we can just change the perspective of people, especially around autism, where there's the body movements, like you were saying, like the different ways of communication, it's looked at with the stigma of, oh, that person, like, they might hurt me or they're incompetent. They don't know what they're, like all the things that are just wrong. If you can just change your perspective to say that that's communication right there. Like they're trying to tell me something or the world something or their caregiver something, or they just are trying to, they have to move that way to get something out. Like if you can just change that perspective, and I know people are in this, teachers are in this all the time, so it's hard sometimes. And I remember being a younger mom and not seeing that sometimes, that was communication. He was trying to tell me something. But it's a huge perspective shift if you can just see all behavior as communication.
Yeah,
Mhm.
everything we do is communication. The way we move, art is communication. When someone's banging in their head, that's communication. They're trying to tell you something.
But we all
And
want people to communicate like us.
Mhm.
Like that doesn't, like when you want to use your art to communicate and the rest of us are like, when I say us, like society is like, hold on a second, you need to speak English or you need to speak,
Mhm.
with these
well,
kind
I
of,
think that we need to be one culturally competent society.
yeah,
Because like it's like we can't have that mentality, oh, you need to speak English, because there's some people that don't speak English. And there are
exactly.
people that where English is their second language that have developmental disabilities too.
Yeah.
So we have to really be open. We have to be teachers and really open to hearing what people have to say. But I think that we really have to like really like I think that we really have to work on this awareness of stop using the term nonverbal, because there's stop using that term. I mean, you know, you know, you gotta start saying my son or daughter, or my loved one. When they're communicating to you, they're at this table too. I mean, I think that we have to also be open. Like when we're talking in a group, we have to make room for AAC users to communicate. I
That's
don't
right.
know how many support groups or advocacy groups I've been to where they don't wait to allow for someone that uses AAC to communicate, and then that person doesn't get hurt at the table. So I think that if we start doing that, we start inviting people that use AAC to our groups and our circles and saying, hey, you have a voice at the table, we're going to wait for you to speak. That's going to help them build their confidence. But I think just really getting out and getting to know people that use AAC. And I mean, I just really think that all communication, whether you're using AAC or whether you're using your hands to make movements, you it's about like communication, and
This is why I like your advocacy so much, because a lot of advocates, especially advocates that are kind of known for being like tough and like bulldog kind of advocates who get a lot of things done, are not open-minded. So they have like what they want and they're going full stream and they're like, this is what we need, You are a tough advocate, but you're so open-minded. You welcome other people's perspectives. And I can't every time you probably mentioned that in your book, I don't know, 3 or 4 times at least, like that you have to be open when you're advocating. It's really, really important. I think it even says it in this, like I highlighted a space in your book where you're talking about advocacy, and you're kind of like, you find a mentor who's like helping you become a newbie advocate. And you're like, independence is about the ability to be a self-advocate. A characteristic of a good advocate is one that engages with people at different levels and on different platforms. A good advocate listens, invites new voices to the table, and challenges long-standing beliefs, stereotypes, and perspectives. Sometimes advocacy involves putting one's life or their wheelchair on the line to be heard. It is often what you don't hear about indirectly that makes the impact. I learned to adapt and resist. And I just thought, that's perfect. Like, and that's you. You resist, but you also really put yourself and you make space for a lot of different advocates to be at the table with you, which I really respect. And I think it's something that we all as advocates need to learn how to do, like pass the microphone around, like and not just a microphone, but like you're saying, other ways of communicating. It's important.
One of my first advocacy groups, I was in a CareSource advisory council, and I draw a lot to focus, and I draw all kinds of doodles and make notes and people, and I draw comics to engage. And I remember someone saying to me, you have all these amazing notes over there. Hey, it's your turn, like to say something. I know you got something to say. And I will always remember that moment, because it was like, usually I'm just so used to being behind the scenes at that point in my life. I was so used to being behind the scenes. And that was the moment that I realized, wow, like somebody's given me a platform to engage. And so I turned my art around and I started talking about all these points. And it just made my day, just like to be able to engage that way with people, and to, it makes sense to me what's going on. And so, I think that it's possible, to engage with people on a lot of different dynamics. Like, even a person that, doesn't speak, you can sit down and engage with them through, whatever they're doing, wait on them, like, they're going to connect with you. I got a lot of friends that, the little kids that that don't speak, but we have amazing like times. Like one little boy that I engage with, he does mime, and it's really, really cool. And mime is communication. So there's like different ways in which you can communicate with people. Through art, through comics, through drawing, through just sitting and playing with toys. Like I got a ton of little people I play with. Sometimes I have some of my most joyful moments playing with these little people, sitting on the floor with my staff. So, it's just that, I think that we have to reach a little farther to reach people, and, and stop making excuses that we can't reach someone, or, oh, well, this person doesn't speak, so I'm not going to say anything. No, we have to stop that. Yeah. We have to really work at interacting with people and bringing them to the table. I wouldn't mind if I was at the table with kids who just want to play with their toys, or just, I think that it's important to, even kids, like, I think about, your daughter, she's got a voice at the table too. And, it's she advocates for Down syndrome awareness. I am so proud of her every time I see that. It makes my day, and so I think that, there's ways that people can be at the table no matter what age you are, from, your children all the way up to seniors. We have to engage, and I think it's important.
I cannot agree with you more. I can't tell you how many meetings I'm in at schools, and I'm like, I really need your child to be at this meeting because I really think it's important that no matter what their communication level is, that they're here, that they can say something if they want to say something, that they can take home the information and process it and maybe give us something in the future. It's just so important. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've said, okay, we've had this meeting about your child. Now, can you go home? And I have like 5 questions I want you to ask your child before we move on and finish
Mhm.
this, whatever we're doing, ETR, IEP, or whatever. I just don't think we live in a society that just doesn't care what kids think. Although we as like our helicopter generation of parents like really care what they think, but
Mhm.
like the rest of the society doesn't, because that's not how we any of us were raised. And it's important, I think, it's particularly now when we're trying to manage so many kiddos with autism and different abilities, and trying to give them that space to, like, you are wired differently. You have different challenges and different struggles, but you also have like way more strengths than any of us even understand. And so I really think that they could kind of create their own environment so much better than we create it for them. That was one other question I had for you was, you talked a little bit about when you were at a place called Mercy Ministries and how it was a very structured environment, but sometimes when it's really structured, and like we're always wanting structure, like Lindsay and I are always like, our kids need structure, and they do. But sometimes when you get an environment that's so highly structured, it becomes a controlling environment, is what you called it. I thought it was like an
Yeah.
aha moment for me. Like I was like, yes, because sometimes when we're trying to create that environment, especially if we're trying to create like a segregated setting for kids on the spectrum or just kids who have disabilities in general, it can lead to a problematic situation and oftentimes abuse because we've controlled that environment so much. So I know that's a big topic for you, and you do talk a lot about abuse in the book, which I found to be really enlightening too, to your experience. So can you just give us some information on that so that I can kind of wrap my head around it more and maybe give our audience some info?
Well, I think it's important to be person-centered when you're planning structure. If you're not person-centered and you're just making a one-size-fits-all approach, then you're kind of creating an obstacle course for the person that you're creating the structure for. And that's where it becomes controlling and it can actually hurt the person. I really think that structure is important, but I think that the person that the structure is for has to be included in the planning. It's really important. I really think that too, you can make it super structured that there's no room for like mistake or no room for a bad day or everything. And that's kind of makes it where it's hard because when there is a bad day, if it's super structured, you might not know what to do. And that could be like problematic too because and I think it kind of sets employees that are helping people up, staff people up for disaster, not, you know, like not know how to act in emergencies. So I think that it's important to have structure, but I think you have to leave room for just that little bit of chaos too, because,
Mhm.
and honestly, like leave room for, some flexibility. I think that, you can have a structure and routine to a point, but you also have to have moment you have to have room for that moment that that the unexpected is going to happen,
Yeah.
everything. I mean, I think that people mean well, but it can't be so structured that there's no room for challenge. Like when I was at Mercy, they didn't understand autism, and I mean, I would have meltdowns, and then they would just try to like take more stuff away from me, restrict more, and that wasn't the answer either.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that we have to have some room for like that flexibility with structure. I mean, I also think, but the biggest thing is that, structure is not structure unless it's person centered.
Yeah. And then I think, like, just to round everything out, because I think one of your biggest points in the book too is that there has to be a seat at the table for people with lived experience.
Mhm.
And the reason is because we're trying to create these environments. Like as a mom, I try to like do these things for my kids, and then I have tried to do certain things and I'm like, well, sorry guys, like Jack couldn't tell me how to do this, and then that's when it was like, ding, ding, that's when you ask another advocate, right?
Mhm.
So like that's when I would bring in, or hopefully it would like prompt me to call somebody, one of my friends who has lived experience. And that's when I would actually have my breakthroughs, because then I figured it out rather than me trying to do this with my limited set of abilities that are just neurotypical, that I just don't have it. And especially my brain's just not creative. Like I have no artistic ability like you do, Alicia. Like I have none of that. So like I'm just so like I can read a book about autism. I can, like I know the law. I do know my child pretty well, but like that's when I brought in the expert. And so like talk about why it's so important that we listen to people with lived experience.
I really believe that it's important to listen to people with lived experience because, we know like we have our lived experience, but it's like it's important because you're gonna gain a different perspective from like your way of thinking about things. As allies, like it's harder for you guys to see what it's like in our shoes sometimes, or see what it's like in the person's shoes you're advocating for. But sometimes too, you do know them best. But I think it's like a different way to look at it and everything. It also kind of helps get rid of the stereotypes like that exist about care and everything. I think also too that it's good to bring in different perspectives and voices and everything, and I think that it's important to have a person's lived experience because we see it. You walk in our you don't walk in our shoes, so you just see it a little bit different.
Yeah. Can you tell us where we can get the book, Audacity to Speak, and any other resource you want to share to close us out here?
Okay, so you can buy Audacity to Speak on poetryislifepublishing.com. It is not a poetry book, just to clarify that, but published by a poetry publisher. And the things I wanted to say to close is that it's really important to get involved in advocacy, whether it's through the Arc of Ohio or creating small groups. Peer support is super important to get to know other people with disabilities, other family members. It's just really important to have a diverse set of people at the table in advocacy and everything. And another thing is I wanted to say is that we really need to look at the supported decision making thing. It's really important. There's legislation around that right now in Ohio, and it's truly important to learn about it. And there's a supported decision network of Ohio is a really good resource and everything. I really think that we should share more about that because it is something that really helps a lot of people. And it still gives you choice, but it also helps you make informed choice in your care. I think it's also important really just to make sure you understand your waiver. So it's important to ask your managed care plans for your ADA policies once you get on one. So that's all.
Good. That's just it. That's all. Just
Perfect.
a few things. No, I think it's important. I'm glad you brought up the supported decision making again, because I did want to tell our audience, if you're still listening, that we do need to make a push for that bill. So if anybody wants to help us, we're really hoping that everybody will come back to work after this election and get ready to pass some bills by the end of the year, because that one's one where we got to get that passed. Or we got to start all over again. So call us at the ARC or email Lindsay or me, and we'll put some info in the show notes about that supported decision making bill if you want to read more about it. But Alicia,
thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Seriously, I mean, all I do is learn from you, and then I'm like, can I help you with anything? Because I don't think I am at all, but I'm just glad you're in the rooms where things are happening, and I'm really appreciative that you wrote this book. And go out and get the book, guys. It's a very easy read too. Like, it's just something that's just so, like, I feel like you could give it to your like younger adult kids and stuff to help them kind of see that they do have someone that they can kind of identify with, who's going through maybe some of the same kind of things, but she gives you like actual things you can actually do to advocate in here too. So it's a really useful resource. So thank you, Alicia.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.